Greetings, welcome to Motion Artworks Incorporated. I'm David. This is my friend Omar, and what are we talking about today, Omar?
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. It's an manga and anime series written by Horihiko Araki and then developed into an animated show by David Productions.
And we're doing a retrospective on part 1.
Phantom Blood.
Awesome.
Do you want me to start?
So, yeah, get started. Go ahead.
Well,
because you're the the super fan. I'm just I'm just getting to know it. It's definitely interesting.
Yeah, he's kind of the newcomer into all of it. I'm the one who forced him, persuaded him, whatever you want to say, to watch
Persuaded.
it. And so part 1, I have a lot of mixed feelings about part 1. It's not a terrible part, but it has a lot of glaring issues, especially once you compare it to the other ones. Once we get to talking about them at some point later on. And
kind of an intro though, right?
Yeah,
it introduces the story and the family.
It's kind of like a foundational part. In terms of presentation, well, for one, I'll start with character design.
Hold up. I gotta say this.
Go ahead.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
We're gonna spoil stuff. So
a lot of stuff.
Yes, if you haven't seen JoJo and you want to, don't watch this. Wait until after you've watched part 1. Anyway,
if you want any sort of convincing, just if you're looking for a wacky, no holds barred, whatever the author thinks sort of show that takes a bunch of Western influence in Gothic literature or pop culture, then
there's a god ton.
Yeah, JoJo's the show for you. It's a good intro to anime as well because it's the most over dramatic of the bunch.
Kind of the most stereotypical anime, huh?
It's a very pivotal...
bright colors, really stylistic.
Pivotal show, especially in Japan. Yeah. So, starting off with character design, because that's kind of the thing I love the most about JoJo. Jonathan is completely fine. Jonathan is average anime protagonist.
Kind of like the ultimate noble gentleman.
Yeah, he's got the
chivalrous,
blue hair, calmest looking personality. It's juxtaposed to his physique.
Something. I mean, I don't know. If there's ever an influence that's not healthy for men,
JoJo's
it's the anime influence because they're all really big, broad-shouldered, crazy muscular.
And then you have the other side.
Men in real life don't look.
You have
like
the other side
characters.
as well, like completely skinny as hell. Now, in terms of character design, I think the best thing about it, like character design wise, not only in part 1 but in most of JoJo, is Dio. He's
a personality, that's for sure.
He's a big character, and you'll notice not only in part 1 but later on in parts 2 and 3 and even going on to other parts later on.
Yeah.
He's kind of the one that started it all, and his personality kind of it explodes all over his character design because you got the bright blonde hair.
It's all kind of larger than life.
Yeah, really long.
Yeah,
spiky, beautiful sort of hair.
I mean, yeah, and he's a bad guy. So
absolutely,
he's all bad.
Yeah,
I mean, just blatantly bad. Even though it's not quite clear that he's a bad guy to everyone else.
Yeah.
But since the show focuses so much on just he and Jonathan, he's clearly just
that's I think the strong suit about part 1 is the dynamic between Dio and Jonathan.
Yeah.
Everything else has never been really interesting to me. Even coming
that
from
was
someone
definitely the
who
most
loves
interesting
the
part of part 1.
Yeah.
Their dynamic together, and I really felt angry for Jonathan because he could never seem to convince anybody that Dio was heinous.
Yeah.
So
it's a very common trope I notice in a lot of, especially dramas where you have the manipulative newcomer to the family and then
very true.
The one that has tried his best to stay at good terms and then everything breaks down because Dio came in.
Yeah.
And it's perfectly done in the first episode, Dio the Invader, which is just basically setting up Dio's whole scheme of ruining the Joestars and getting their money.
For sure.
Going back to visuals, I and that's a pivotal thing in JoJo. Like not in anime, but in JoJo specifically, it has such a unique art, like sort of sense of art direction. You got switching color schemes. You got like bold lines. You got all sorts of just comic booky influence.
The color was it just, to me it conflicted, and I mean I'm like I said, I'm new to anime.
Yeah.
But to me the color just completely clashed with the kind of the mood and the story they were trying to establish.
That is true.
It was weird to me.
It is definitely weird for someone who's coming into it new, but you learn that the thing with JoJo is that it's a slightly grounded as you can make it of a story with a sort of bombastic presentation.
Yeah.
And
bombastic is a good word for it.
I for one absolutely love the use of color in JoJo, and especially later on.
Well, it's visually interesting. You know?
And in the interesting thing about parts 1 and 2 being in one season, meaning that they have the same art style, David Productions was not given as much funding for this adaptation, so they kind of, you can notice they had limited sort of animation, especially in scenes that involved talking.
Now, did they have more for later parts?
Yeah, as it got more and more popular, especially in the West, it has gotten a lot more funding. Bigger budget to mess around with. Even the company itself, like the talent behind it has improved, and they've really gotten much better at adapting it.
Because I mean, each season, each part seems to look better than the one before it.
Yeah.
But when you compare part 1 to part 2, there's like just a huge jump.
Yeah.
Just a very big difference, you know.
And
part 1 was
part
just
2 to 3
inferior to all of them.
Part 2 to 3, especially,
there was a jump.
Switched.
There was the style was different for sure. But when it comes to quality, there was a dramatic difference from part 1 and part 2.
Yeah.
And the quality was kind of still there between parts 2 and 3. Like the quality didn't necessarily get any better. The style changed.
Yeah.
But quality, it was really lacking in part 1 when you compare it to the others.
Yeah, I would say this. The thing with part 1 is that it's not necessarily like a big meaty part. It's only like 8-9 episodes long.
It was really short compared to part 2.
It's compared to part 3, you'll get to that.
Wow.
But it's kind of what I say the best things about it is the dynamic between Dio and Jonathan and how it sets up everything else in the story later on. And that's why people tell you to start with part 1 as boring as it is, or as boring as it can be, because it's practically the most important part in the entire story.
Yeah, I mean, you got to know what's going on.
Yeah, and it's I will mention this: the openings are something that I enjoy a lot, and
they're very interesting.
Yeah. I will tell you this: they are done by a different studio, at least the 3D models. After part 3, it becomes more just David Productions doing all the animation. But that one was, I forgot what the name of the studio was, but I think it was a Korean studio that did the 3D models, which is why they look so different.
Yeah.
But I for one love the music, but that's just me being biased. But you notice that
there's a lot going on in the music, you know? Like, it's even busier than your average, like, Western rock song or something, you know? And clearly they're going for a Western influence. I mean, they want to appeal to the West, you know? And they're certainly paying homage to our pop culture.
Absolutely.
Which is amazing.
Well,
Mine, you're from Palestine.
Yeah. But, no, I understand. It's just like, Araki, as a writer, he takes a lot of influence from Western culture, a lot more than he does his own culture. Which is what made JoJo so much more unique, even in the anime space, because it took a lot of Western influence and a lot of, especially English influence. Right. You got characters like the Pillar Men, named after bands like Wham, AC/DC.
That's part 2, though.
Yeah, and then you got part 1. Even then, part 1 you have Speedwagon. Robert E.O. Speedwagon, named after R.E.O. Speedwagon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's talk about Speedwagon real quick, because I found him to be a very interesting character.
He's a fun character.
So how did he start?
He was a sort of burglar / criminal / mob boss.
I mean, kind of a thug.
Yeah, in London,
terrorized
in the
London,
streets of London.
And late 1800s, correct? That was when that took place?
When
part 1 took place,
England.
So, I mean, I picture him as kind of almost a Jack the Ripper type, but I mean not like
way, yeah.
Not,
even though they
not
do
a killer,
have,
just a
even
punk.
though they do have Jack the Ripper in part 1.
Yes, they do, horses. Don't they? Of course.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Jack the Ripper comes.
But
out
you know
of
the
horse.
type, kind of a London thug who terrorizes people.
It's
on
funny
the
that
streets,
his voice actor in the dub was the only one to get at least a decent British accent.
It wasn't bad, but as I recall, it was standard British.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really wanted to get accurate with it, he should have had a Cockney accent.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
It's the thing with what I love about Speedwagon is that he has been a thug and a criminal, but he never had bad intentions.
Yeah.
And that was kind of his whole thing.
You're right, he never did. He was poor, and he learned to fight, and he learned to kind of like take what was his, It wasn't like, he wasn't sinister, definitely rough around the edges and was not on the right side of the law, but you're absolutely right.
But then he gets inspired by Jonathan, which also cements Jonathan as the big noble idol, even in like the Joestar family. We'll talk about it once we do
once we get part 2. Yeah, because there was a reason I brought up Speedwagon. Yeah, he's actually one of my favorite characters. I say
he's a lot of people's favorites. I can say.
Yeah, I mean he's
a
cool.
popular character.
He had a really nice character arc. I thought it was really neat. Although you kind of missed a bunch of it, but that'll be in episodes to come or parts to come. It was interesting though.
I want to ask you about the other characters. We have William Antonio Zeppeli, Baron Zeppeli.
Yes, that guy was
the mentor, the classic mentor type of character.
He was kind of goofy. I mean,
the mustache.
He was clearly necessary. He really was needed. I mean, because he introduced Hamon.
Yeah.
How about I mention weird though?
How about I mention something we both agree wasn't really enjoyable to watch? His death. His death scene.
Sucked.
It sucked, but it was also very, very, very.
He took like an hour describing. He had this like death monologue where he took like a freaking hour describing.
That's something that gets fixed. I'll say that much. Especially again, part 2.
Because that's around the time. If there was a time in season 1 where I asked myself, "What the hell am I watching?" It was that.
Yeah.
Like he just kept going.
The thing with part 1 is that I know it's annoying that we mention all the other parts because that's going to be in different videos, but it's because part 1 is, not going to lie, pretty bad on its own, but it's best to look at it compared to all the other parts and what it sets up. And especially what I love about JoJo is that it's an evolutionary series. It's a series where Araki was not given much limits on what he can or can't do with his story, so you can tell a bunch of evolution and how well he does his writing as the parts go on. And it even shows, I think, honestly, in part 1 too. Like it shows that he was going through tropes, and he was going through a lot of Western tropes and a lot of Gothic sort of influence, Dracula and all those other classic monster movies. And but here's my absolute favorite scene in part 1, and I think you can also resonate with that, the final scene of part 1. Jonathan's, not only his betrayal, but his death and everything around it.
I was thinking to myself, why in the heck did they kill him off? He was like the most noble character, and he just got married. They were on their honeymoon.
They were about to have a kid.
Yeah.
His wife was pregnant.
Killed him.
Yep.
It's like, what the heck? That was not...
I think it was a pretty good decision. I think it was a good way to set the scene.
Okay, so I'm not arguing with you.
Yeah.
But I am asking why you think that was a good decision.
Well, the thing with that is that I feel like it was the author's way of showing that this is not going to be a traditional story.
Gotcha.
It kind of felt Shakespearean to me,
Yeah.
It had that tragedy to it, and I think that was perfect for Jonathan being the normal, the average noble Englishman sort of hero, that knightly hero that dies horribly, but he still dies smiling. In his brother or his brother's head in his arms.
But now
in the middle of the flames,
Dio,
the bottom of the sea.
We thought Dio was dead at the end of part 1, correct?
Yeah.
So it seemed like there was no clear motivation as to why they would kill off Jonathan. Yeah. Was it so that, and we're spoiling the crap out of it, just to let you guys know again. Was it because Dio was not dead and we had to think he was dead, and if Jonathan had survived, maybe Dio would have come back?
It was kind of meant to be not only to give Jonathan that lasting impact on people with the sacrifice, but it was also to make people think that Dio was not dead.
Interesting.
Because there were hints dropped that Dio...
that he wasn't dead.
Or that Dio wasn't planning on dying. He was only planning to get Jonathan's body to regenerate. But they put you into this false sense that that just because Jonathan was holding him and he was dead meant that, Dio can't
So we were
survive.
supposed to know at the end of part 1 that he took Jonathan's body?
No. You're supposed to kind of figure...
See, again, why kill him off
Well,
then?
you're supposed to figure it out part 3, but you do hear Dio being like,
kill him off because he eventually took Jonathan's body.
Yeah, I will take your body.
Of course.
But it's also,
and he wouldn't have taken his body had he not died.
It's again the Shakespearean sacrifice.
Yeah.
Which shows again how much influence he takes.
And that's a risk, because if you've got like a writing nut who can't watch anything with crappy writing, to see that you might lose somebody watching it, because they're just sitting there why did they do that? What was the motivation,
that is why season 1 was both 2 parts.
Yeah.
Because that helps to, tell you, no, that's not how the series ends. Yeah. There's still stuff going on.
Either that or get you invested in future Joestar characters.
Yeah.
So that you're not lamenting Jonathan for very long.
Yeah. What I think was really great about that scene is just showing Jonathan's compassion. Dio completely ruined his life, threw his dog into the furnace, stole his life, stole everyone's love for him.
Yeah.
Made Jonathan completely alone. Yeah. Even the little kiss that he stole from Irina.
Oh, I know.
He completely ruined everything about Jonathan's life, and yet Jonathan still found it in himself to forgive him and treat him as a brother. And that's kind of, I think, was the point of his death, was to put Jonathan as an example to what all the other Joestars should be.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's kind of a conflict. It's a meta conflict that is not addressed in the show, but is addressed with the viewer.
Yeah.
On, here's this pedestal, this perfect example of what a Joestar should be, compared to all the other ones later on.
Yeah. It's funny, your favorite character is Jotaro. Mine is Joseph Joestar.
For now.
And Jonathan was the most admirable one. What does that say about us?
Yeah, it's kind of, now on the topic of flaws in characters, how about we talk about the parts flaws in terms of
parts?
The
flaws in the part.
For one, I think voice acting and sound design was a problem. There's sound effects that were way too loud compared to everything else that was going on. Yeah. Voice acting, you can tell they were really trying to get an English accent. It made me cringe. But it didn't work.
The accents were so cringy. There was no reason for it, because there are so many capable voice actors out there.
What did you think of Dio, though? I think that's one thing I want to get your thoughts on.
Dio was one of the...
Because Dio's voice actor carries on to the later
He was one of the less...
He was a lot more cartoonish than everyone else,
He was. So maybe that was why he seemed...
Put into him.
Maybe that was why I didn't cringe quite as much.
Yeah.
But Jonathan's accent?
Absolutely,
gosh.
Or Zeppeli, his weird Italian accent.
That was bizarre. Well, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Yeah.
Of course.
And...
yeah,
his father was not bad, George Joestar. He was not.
Yeah,
terrible.
He actually wasn't bad at all.
He was the traditional English old guy,
He was.
He did good.
Yeah.
I think I can't really fault the actors on it, because mainly, again, not much funding, especially with the dub, because at the time when that part was made,
so like they couldn't
dubbed,
get Sir Patrick Stewart,
it was not,
so they had to sell for like, you know, this guy who spent, you know, a couple of years in in London,
in community theater,
something like that.
It's kind of.
I was thinking like a Japanese guy who went to London for a couple of years and just came back.
No, they are English voices. Those were English.
Oh, that's true. Actors. Americans though, and they were trying to do British.
Americans. It's just that at the time JoJo was they were still trying to sell it.
Yeah,
they were still trying to sell it, and I think Dio, if it wasn't for how good his actor was, I don't think it would have made it did as well.
Yeah,
and it's partly because elitist try-hard anime fans.
It's really interesting. I guess it's easier to find low-budget American voice actors than it is to find low-budget British voice actors.
Yeah.
Because, I mean...
But it does, I will say, it does get better as time goes on. Parts 1 and 2, not amazing. Mm-hmm. Parts 3, I think you can say.
So far, so good.
There's
Part
been a
3
big
is definitely interesting,
big improvement in voice acting.
And Joseph
and Jotaro
he's like my favorite form. Like, Joseph is his best self in Part 3.
Yeah, he's gonna be his best self.
I also like the voice acting way better than the first one.
Yeah, definitely.
It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I mean, I don't think he would sound quite that different as an old man from a young man. But
he is a big. It
I
is
like
also
the actor
a big.
better, the voice.
He is a big turn from Part 2 to Part 3, and I like Part 3 a lot more. As much as Part 2 was perfect for the story.
It introduces your favorite character.
Huh?
It introduces your favorite character.
I mean, yeah, but I mean also it introduces the best incarnation of Joseph, because he shows up in another part later on, but that's his worst incarnation.
Really?
To me.
I want to see that now.
But yeah, it's a lot of to be continued, that sort of thing with Part 1. So I think this video would be classified more of talking about Part 1 in relates on how it's going to build up to other parts. This is this is basically the Part 1 to our retrospective. It's the foundation to here's what we think of like the story as a whole as it's going to go on based on Part 1.
Right.
I think.
Well, I can't wait. I mean, I can't wait to keep doing this.
I can't wait for Part 3. Part 3 is my favorite, as many flaws as it will have in terms of pacing and writing later on.
Sure.
But yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Awesome, heck yeah! Thank you for joining us this week. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. And appreciate you being here with me, Omar.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. And I look forward to future retrospectives on JoJo. Mm-hmm. We're going to do Part 2 soon.
Later on, yep.
And then Part 3 and so on.
Well,
I've only gone as far as Episode 2 of Part 3. But
yeah, we've only seen... I've seen the whole thing so far. Yeah. But, I'll say that much. He's in for a ride for Part 3. It's going to be wild.
Sounds good.
A lot more wild than anything else you've been expecting.
Heck yeah. And Omar's going to join me for every one of these retrospectives on JoJo. So, anyway, thanks again. I will see you all soon. Bye.